Hey there, Ellen. Ready to stir up some more trouble today?
Boy, am I, Martha. I've had quite a day on my adventure trip. I'll have to share all the details today.
Very good.
The day started at 6 a.m. on the freight team at Tractor Supply. Then I got a call about 11. Could I go work the Dolphin Days boat tour at 3? Mind you, I only did the training last night. So I had a break after Tractor Supply at 1. So I ran home, changed clothes, and went to do the tour with Blackbeard scuba diving, and I'm the first mate, mind you. So the captain and I took out the tour and we saw dolphins, several pods of dolphins. It was absolutely gorgeous day. But at one point, he hands the throttle over to me to steer the boat, which I've driven speedboats, but I've never driven a tour boat before. And while he's doing all the historical commentary and what have you, and the waves were pretty rough. So I got a very quick synopsis training on how to navigate the waves. And then I had to jump off the boat and, as we come in to the dock and do the half hitch on the cleat and everything. And it's interesting because, with the horses, we're always wrapping over, over, over.
Mhm.
So my brother, Jay, was teaching me yesterday how to do the half hitch. And you go over and then over like we would maybe a shaft loop, but then you turn the loop upside down and you go across the horn. Well, it took me about 6 times to get it because my hand wanted my
Wanting to
muscle
harness up
memory.
a horse, right?
Yeah, my muscle memory was on harnessing a horse, but I finally got it. So it was just the captain who was he's a captain. He tells you what you want and how he wants it to do it, which is great. And then I had to do the lines so that the boat came into the dock appropriately and help the people on the boat and off the boat. And I guess I did okay because they couldn't believe that was my first time to really do it. So I'm going back to do another tour at 7:30. So the day's been Tractor Supply, Dolphin Days, podcast, Dolphin Days. So
Very fun. So this is
yeah,
definitely like a boating type community, right?
yes, it's very coastal. And
Okay.
when the weather breaks, it's really hot right now, but when it breaks a little bit, I'll set up the camera there at the waterfront.
Okay.
It's a lovely little community.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
like it's a lot of fun. I like
Yeah.
the boating part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Really, really nice. Now, what's your day been like?
Well, definitely not as exciting as you have. So to be honest with you, today I just did like a lot of office work and horse laundry, horse laundry, horse laundry, horse laundry.
Yeah.
I do so much horse laundry. So today was a full horse laundry day. So I just did, a couple lessons and horse laundry, chatted with customers. So that was it. We have summer camp going on. So it's kind of cute. We have pony campers this week. The pony campers are so cute. That's such a great age, that 4 to 8. They are charming and endearing and lovely, and, they're
What
kind
are
of
some of
like,
the activities you do with them?
well, they get on and they get to ride, and you show them how to hold their reins. They actually learn how to post, and they ride without their reins. They do little balance exercises like putting their arms in front of them and circles and things like that. And I think today they made like they cut paper plates, made them look like horseshoes and painted them. So they love like little craft type things. So
Now, is there something that you do that's specifically unique to your program?
Specifically unique to our program. You know what? I think, you always just try to come up with some different crafts and stuff this week. I personally don't have to do it. Actually, my daughter did the pony camp this week, and then she's got a couple of moms that come and help too. So that's kind of nice. But my daughter kind of does the pony campers, but they're only there from like 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And they're so cute because I always tell parents they always have to bring their lunches and stuff. So when they bring their lunches, they're already eating like at 11 o'clock. And then I'll have when people sign up, they go, "Really? They have to bring a lunch?" And I said, "Yes." I said, by the time they finish riding, all these little kids, they all love to eat. Eating is definitely a pastime for them. So eating is a big thing to them. So
Absolutely.
mhm.
I think it is to almost everybody.
I think you're right. I do think it is a national event for sure. So, yeah. So anyways, I got to watch the pony campers out of the corner of my eye, but they're just cute. So It's a darling age, and I think as we were talking about the other day too, that's definitely an age group that I think a lot of barns should capture. If you don't really kinda already have them in your program by the time they're, as we had talked earlier, like 8 or 9, they're gonna go to other sports, soccer, basketball, swimming, all that. Mhm.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
And, the last 6 years during the World Championship Horse Show, I would host a room for the children
Mhm.
called Horsing Around with Ellen.
Right.
And it's open to all ages, but the emphasis in the early years in particular was on the younger crowd,
Mhm.
because if you can capture your students under age 10, you have a good chance of ingratiating them to want to stay
Yes.
with us.
Mhm.
They've already established some of their social norms, 11, 12, 13,
Mhm.
and it's much harder to break into that. And then the older students, they're a little more unique, I found, because if they come to you at that stage, then they probably have a real desire to learn. But I think that's so critical to do what you're doing and promoting it to the younger kids.
Yeah, it just if you don't, we have I think in the horse industry now, we just have so many other sports to compete with. And really the best time that we had with the riding school, I know it sounds COVID. Oh my God, we were so busy during COVID because none of the other sports were doing anything. But, everybody at the barns, COVID. Yeah, we were there. Everybody was like, oh, I love COVID. We were off work. I thought, oh, COVID, we were just working even harder.
Yeah, exactly.
We're working harder, but you know what? The riding schools and the programs really took off during COVID, but now, let's face it, everything is wide open and there's a lot of competition for other sports. I think the other thing that we were gonna touch on a little bit too today was, we're gonna talk a little bit about, women in the horse business, especially single women, and then single women or women too that have, families. 'Cause I was a single mom for 8 or 9 years as well, and we both agreed it's difficult.
I would agree. In my situation, I can speak to that. When I had Molly, I was at the height of my career at the Christical farm with that program, and I didn't realize I was pregnant for about 6 months. And I just thought that my pants were getting tight. I was 38. They had been custom made Jods by Carl Myers, and I'd had them for a number of years. I thought, well, this makes sense. And I'm at the World Cup in 2000 with Joe Cornell. And I'm laying on the floor just saying, I just don't feel great. And, we'd been celebrating the whole World Cup. We were on the road for 6 weeks. So I'd gone from Louisville up to Madison, Wisconsin, down to Indiana for the UPHA finals, back up to Milwaukee for the Pleasure Olympics. Then I was home for 2 days between 4 and 5 and learned that I was pregnant. Went to St. Louis with the ultrasound and handed it to James Nichols, who was my business partner there. And I said, James, I want you to meet Thetis the fetus. And he was like, so as soon as I told him, I looked pregnant. So I switched to overalls during that time. So we were in Atlanta for week 5 and then drove all the way over to St. Louis for week 6. So that's very indicative of our life during those years. We were on the road constantly.
Mhm,
So it was the greatest blessing. I'd always wanted to have children.
mhm,
And anybody that knows me knows I have a lot of dogs, and I had kids training in my home. I mean, my home was set up with bunk beds, and they would come and spend weeks on end with me. So I was raising a lot of children during those years, and it just happened. I couldn't have been happier, but I will tell you that, I have ice water in the veins for the most part. And I had this little breakdown right before I had Molly, just like, how can I do this? I am by myself. How can I do this? And James was really sweet. He says, you will be fine. You will be just fine. So had Molly on December 30th, but in those days, we had this huge party for our clients. We had 85 people for a sit down dinner on the 28th. On the 29th, one of our clients was getting married, and we had everybody, we had 40 plus or minus horses in training. So they all came in to ride their horses and for the banquet that we produced. And I didn't feel great. So I called the OBGYN and they said, oh, just don't overdo anything. And just, you should be fine. Well, I go to the wedding that night and everybody's trying to get me out on the dance floor, and I'm like, "I don't think so." So I go home. Mind you, I live by myself. I go home thinking that I have indigestion, get up on the 30th, get ready to go to the barn, again, do the whole thing again, teaching, and 6:30, my water breaks. So I drive myself to the hospital. I'm on the phone saying, "I'm not coming to the barn
To the
today."
hospital after your water broke.
After my water broke, drove myself to the
All by
hospital.
yourself?
Yeah,
My
yeah, I
god.
drove myself to the hospital, walked in there, there's my OBGYN in the behind the counter, and I said to her, I said, "I either have really bad indigestion or I'm about to have a baby." So I ended up having Molly at 11:45. Mind you, I got there at quarter to 7, had Molly at 11:45 in the room at 1, I mean, at 1 PM. So she's always been my partner.
Mhm.
She made that effortless, and she just, got in under the tax deadline, so she's my ride or die for
Oh
sure.
my god.
But then I had to figure out how am I going to handle all of these responsibilities, and I remember after about a week, I was like, "Okay, this is fun, I'd like to give her back now," you know? And, fortunately, my mother was there, and I had some good help
Well,
with
that's
it,
good.
but yeah, yeah. So, how I this is funny how I ended up figuring out how to manage it all. And I did take a couple weeks off from the barn. So I had a dog bed with a cutout like this, and it was oval. So I put her baby sheet and everything in the dog bed. And then I put the dog bed in the bed with me. That way I knew I wouldn't roll over on her and she wouldn't roll off the bed. And I had all the baby stuff. I had everything. But this worked for me. So for her first year, she slept in a dog bed. And people, I mean, we laugh about it now, but because we were traveling so much, it worked great because I could
Right.
just pack the dog bed. We had an RV and we had the hotels, and she could be in the dog bed. And I didn't have to worry about all the stuff that, might be on the bedspread, all that kind of thing. But the very first horse show I went to after having her, I had to fly into Dallas, and James was there getting ready to show road horse. And I was completely numb and shot when I got there. And all I can remember is sitting in a chair at the tack room, just holding her, wondering, how am I going to do this?
Mhm.
And, she was such a trooper. Well, by the end of the show, she was in her little bassinet in the middle of the hallway and figured it out. And I would carry one of those jumpy chairs
Mhm.
and it would clamp to the stall. So we were working. I'd just hang her in the hallway and she'd, have her jumpy time. And one of those little things you scoot around
Yep.
into, and then we morphed into a magic stall everywhere we went because we also had clients with small children at that
Right.
time. So we just had an extra stall. We decorated it, put carpet down, the whole 9 yards. So the children had the magic stall. So anyway, that's how the love for doing horsing around and realizing that our working professionals, when it comes time to not just work, but to raise a family in our industry, and it's a wonderful industry in which to raise children. You have so many extended family members, and I have lots of Molly stories that I will share throughout the time. But this particular time in my life, I realized how important it was and how amazing it is to have the friendships that I have. So when Molly was older and on her own, I wanted to develop a program, which I am this year taking a hiatus because of everything else, but I
Mhm.
will be back with the horsing around so that the professional families know that there is a place that their children can be well looked after, where the children can have their space to just be kids while the parents are working during the World Championship Horse Show. And we did some other shows as well, but that's the primary one. And it's a program that's very near and dear to my heart. So I will continue it. I just need to get through this time right now.
I think that's a great idea. It's kind of funny because now that I have grandkids and my granddaughters are, they're 3 and 5, but just when they go to a horse show, same thing. My daughter set something up in one of the stalls, just like a little sofa and a chair so they can kind of sit there and, watch movies and do things like that. So that way then they can kind of feel comfortable, or if they get kind of tired, they can just kind of chill out a little bit. But I think though the biggest thing is that Emily now, she's an amateur now, she's a stay-home mom. It's kinda hard, like, once you get, like, more than one.
Uh huh.
And there for a while, I think actually I actually was juggling 3 kids for a while because I had, my 2 daughters, and then I had my stepdaughter when I got remarried the second time. We kinda had, like, the mini Brady Bunch, so I had one from my first marriage, he had a daughter from a first marriage, and then we had one ourselves, so but, there for a while, there was a lot of juggling. What's really nice though when you go to horse shows is that a lot of time the customers love going and they'll pick the baby up and or the kids and they like to take them with them. So when they're little, they're just so endearing. So they're endearing until about their, 11 or 12 and then they get to be teenagers. And sometimes that endearingness kind of wears off, but when they're little, they're just so much fun. So,
To that point, I would joke as Molly was a teenager,
mhm.
I said, out in the industry, I stand this tall. When
Mhm.
I go home, I'm this tall. When
Very
we were
true.
going through the difficult times.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think when you have teenagers, I think that's always the time if you had any confidence at all, your confidence is totally shattered by your children because, of course, let's say when they're older, you either don't know anything, right? You know nothing. Everything that you say is like stupid or silly, or you don't know anything. You definitely do not know anything. And then including with even with horses after a while. I know, like, even as a teenager, my daughter would just kind of be like, oh, you'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
But it is, you know what, it is definitely difficult, and I think then too, the trajectory also changes because you do have kids, and there was always a part where I think when you're working with horses and stuff as well, when you have kids, you have to concentrate more on your family, and you have to sometimes make decisions that are more family orientated, and you do have to kind of make some sacrifices because sometimes you can't always go to the really long horse shows, and especially once your kids start going to school. That's huge, Sometimes when you have kids, you have to really pick and choose. And even the young lady that works with me now, really long horse shows is really difficult for her when she has like small kids because you really cannot just go, for, 6, 7, 8 days and it's hard when you take them when they're that little, but at the same token, it's very difficult to go and leave them at home. So there's decisions and sacrifices that you have to make that sometimes I kind of think, again, being a woman trainer with kids, that sometimes men trainers, they don't have to make those decisions. And I think our lives are on a different parallel according to it. I personally would not go and change it, but it was kind of funny. Even like when Smith Lilly did the clinic here, I laughed and I said, Smith, I said, wow, lucky me. My world champions are 1% of what yours are. But again, I just didn't have all of that time to put in that somebody like Smith could really go and put in that way. And then what happens though is that our lives change. Then we're staying home doing more group classes and lessons and things like that to stay home because with the kids that we're there with the summer camps and things like that. So,
Absolutely.
mhm,
My trajectory definitely changed as well. It's brought me, or it did bring me to Stevens because
mhm,
that was a situation that I could work, but also have a very good amount of time off with the holidays and the summers. And even though I might, as a department chair, I worked year round, but it wasn't as intense during the summer. And the benefit in that capacity is that Molly was able to go to the Stevens College Children's School, which is a wonderful program. And she could go at the top of the hill and then walk down to the barn thereafter. But it definitely changed because it was said to me on more than one occasion, Ellen, you will not be able to work like you have always worked when you
yeah,
have Molly.
yeah,
And that held true for a short amount of time, but that's another podcast. We'll
right,
tell you
yeah,
about all the different hats,
yes,
that I wore at one time. A single parent, whether it's male or female, balancing the family with the profession brings its own set of unique challenges.
for sure.
And I was schooled on this one time when I went to the bank, that the, teller behind the window when I don't know if I
Hmm.
and because we had gotten to know each other, and she said, "At least you can take your children with you. I have to put mine in daycare."
Hmm.
And I thought, "Okay, I deserve that." Because
Yeah,
that is a benefit. That's a
yeah,
bonus that if we need it, we can call upon our colleagues and our clients often wanna help, but, those are all balance points, but it definitely did change the trajectory. I would never have considered doing what I had done. From 2005 on to 2014, that was not in my game plan, but it again, it ended up being a very substantial experience, and
You know,
Molly
I
got a lot of
yeah.
benefit from it.
Right. And I think then too, I mean, I don't think mothers at any point would go and say that they would go and miss this. I mean, I wouldn't trade in for the time I spent with my kids or whatever I did for anything in the world, but it just had some very interesting challenges. And I think
Yeah.
even customer wise, you're going to being a single mom or whatever, you're going to lose customers because you can't always be there all the time. You can't, you're hours that you teach sometimes too, or hours that you work have to go and rotate around taking the kids to school, picking the kids up from school. So your
There is,
days revolve around what they're also
yeah,
doing at school. And then too, you also have to kind of go and they also have to do some other activities as well. So you're not as available as people would like. Now, as I'm older, when you look back on all this stuff, it's like no big deal, but it was a huge deal. I think of all of the stress and trauma that I went through all this stuff because being a mom, as we know, you can't please everybody. No way.
no,
There's no way
no,
that there, and
I
you know what, at the end of the day, and I think sometimes too, and I want people, moms to kind of think too, it's a very normal feeling. You just really kind of feel sometimes you feel like you can't make anybody happy because you're like the jack of all trades, master of none. You'd be like doing group classes and private lessons, and you would try to work some horses here. And then every so often you have to clean stalls, and then you got to run around and do other things that you have to do at the barn. And you're always constantly kind of I felt very, yeah. Sometimes I would be like, oh my God, and I look back now and I think, how did I even get through some of those days?
but you did make it. You
Hmm.
did, and
Yeah.
you were very creative with it.
Yeah.
Molly rode on my back for the first 2 years.
We
I
have
had a
to yeah,
backpack,
we gotta put
and I
that picture
tied
up. Yep.
yeah, I tied a sassy blanky
Yeah.
juice to it, and I just kept teaching, and she'd be asleep, and, the sassy'd fall off. I'd hoist it up, stick it back in there, and never missed a beat.
Yeah.
Never missed a beat with it. Now and
Yeah.
I had this really cool backpack that had this flip out set of legs.
Right.
So I could back up to, some kind of a counter, flip
Mhm.
the legs out, and drop her right out off my back, and then hoist her down and take her out. But I did that for 2 years with
Wow.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the big message too that I really wanna go and give kids about their moms, and I want all kids to really listen to this, is I have to say that probably out of 90% of the moms that I meet, I'll give maybe okay, there's probably 10% of moms, we'll put them in the crack-a-doodle group, but I would say that really most moms truly try to do the best job they can in the situation they are. It's kind of funny because even sometimes too, when you still listen to like teenagers talking, every so often I'll kind of bend my ear and like listen to them. I like listen to them talk about their parents. I think, you know what? You guys are so clueless. Your parents do all kinds of things to either get you the things that you want or try to help you when you get older to go. I mean, really our biggest thing with our kids, our biggest dream is that we want our kids to be able to succeed, be able to have their dreams and to live happy lives. That's all I want. It's not like, it's not like I tell my kids, oh, you have to be a president or something. I just want my kids to be happy, kind of be able to support themselves. And if they can realize their own personal dream somewhere in their life, that's our biggest wish as a mom. And yeah, right?
Did you require your daughter to work in the barn?
Yes. She was not very pleased with it. Let me tell you. Yes.
Neither was mine.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No,
But I
she
said,
was,
if we're gonna run our business, you have to
yeah,
at least know what it
yeah.
takes to run it.
She was kind of when she was younger, we kind of made especially we made the girls go and work all the time for a multitude of reasons. First off, for responsibility purposes and stuff. And I'm sure that they would probably go and tell you, that they didn't like it or whatever. But I have learned too, and this is for kids that work versus kids that don't work. Even the kids that work at the barn now usually grow up to be the most responsible, capable people if they do learn those work skills when they're at a younger age. And again, everybody,
Yes.
audience, please, we're not out there making our kids work at 6, 7, and 8 years old. So don't get all excited.
No.
I can
Al
see it
although
now.
this is funny, this is a funny story. Molly was 2 or 3, and I was sweeping the lounge, and I was teaching her she had a little baby broom. I was teaching her how to sweep the lounge,
Uh-huh.
and I made the comment, "I wonder where so and so is. They must be running late." So they come through the door, and she turns around and she looks at them and she goes, "Where have you been? We've been waiting on you." I was like, "No."
Yes.
Fortunately, they laughed. There were times she did more than at others, but what
Right.
she has told me is the work ethic that she learned has set her apart in the jobs that she's had since.
For
And I
sure, for
believe
sure.
yeah,
It's
and
probably made her just
she
a
knows how
very
to work.
capable, right, and it makes her
Yes.
very capable and everything else, and I just think that when kids grow up and when they work and they have responsibilities, I just think it's huge, so and there's always a big difference between the kids too that work because then they're not afraid of working when they get older either, and they're not afraid of jumping into things, and I think they're a little bit more confident too, like, just with their lifestyle skills as well, so
Now, do you have a youth club?
we have a youth group at our barn, and we've had some really amazing people run it and, some parents run it. And it's really good for the kids too, because I think same thing, it builds up camaraderie. And I think now, as we know that we have to deal with the cell phone thing, just trying to go and keep the kids off the cell phones for a while. We never had to go and deal with that. We grew up in the era of, we had one phone, in the house. I remember when I was a kid. Oh, yes, in the middle and your parents could just put their ear all the time and listen to you all the time, right? But, kids now are constantly on their phones. And I think too, having like, a youth group like this, it helps them evolve and develop social skills because, a lot of times with kids being on the computer and on their phones all the time, things like social skills kind of go a little bit to the wayside because they're a little bit more used to kind of being into themselves, and not having to go and deal with, groups and stuff. So, yeah.
So, Martha, this is changing the subject a little bit.
Yes.
You want me to again wear my ruffles and wear my
Yes.
hat. And this hat was the hat I wore in South Africa when I judged the national championship about 3, 4 years ago. And people have teased me that it is like the old retired rock and roller hat, which I would love. I mean,
Yeah.
I named my minivan Chrissy Chrysler, but that's after Chrissy Hine. So,
Yep.
Chrissy Hine, thank you, Chrissy Hine. You
There you
got me through
go. I love
college.
it. There
Yes.
you go.
So this is my South African oriented retired rock and roller hat. Yes, because the sun's very intense, and it is down here in Southport too. So I thought it would be a good one to bring along.
Right. I love
It
it.
looks a little funny on top of the earphones, but
That's
it is a
okay.
nice hat.
It probably goes and it kept all the sun out of because I heard the sun is very bright down there, brighter than usual or not really?
My goodness, yes. It would be very cold in the evenings, but then it would be in the 80s during the day. So you have this
Okay.
huge temperature change. I didn't go well prepared.
I have useless information and I have useless horse information. And then
Bring it
we're
on.
gonna pull out of today is your turn. I have something I think I can pull out of my rusty bucket. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull it
Okay.
out of my rusty. So let me go through.
Then do I
I'm
have
gonna
to answer it
Yes, this
if you
is
pull it
your
out of the
because I think
rusty?
last week you made me
Okay,
answer it. I'm going to go through this pretty fast. This is kind of like a bonus round, and I'm going to do it on purpose because this way, then people would have to go back and maybe listen to the podcast again if I say this too fast. So, are we ready for useless horse information? Now,
bring it on.
obviously, horse people should know most of this information, but I'm going to pull some of this out. So, in case if we get some people that, but they're like beginner riders, or who knows, maybe we could even get that, maybe we can even get some people that maybe like to listen to us because they want to know more about horses. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of everything. Okay. Are we ready? Okay. Just going to read through my list very quick. So I'm going to do it very quickly and then I'll stop somewhere along the line. So horses' teeth take up more space in their head than their brain does. And of course, they grow throughout their life. Horses' teeth continue to grow, which is, of course, why we always have to float their teeth. And the term long in the tooth, that's where it comes from the fact that horses' teeth always continue to grow. And of course, I know horse people know that horses can't vomit, but of course, there's a strong band of muscle around the esophagus that makes it essentially one way, which is part of why colic in horses is such a big deal. The word chestnut refers to both coat color and those weird callousy growths on the inside of their legs. No relation, it's just linguistic chaos. A horse named Old Billy allegedly lived until 62 years old, but nobody really trusts that record. But it's out there, and you know what? You can look it up, and Old Billy's record still stands. Horses have nearly a 360-degree field of vision with two blind spots directly in front of their nose and directly behind their tail, which explains a lot of trail spooking at things they literally cannot see until it's too late. Continue with more useless horse trivia. Horses have no gallbladders. Bile just drips straight into the small intestine on a continuous basis, which is nature's commitment to keeping things flowing. The Przewalski's horse is the only truly wild species left. Mustangs are technically feral descendants of domestic escapees, so they don't count in the purest sense. A group of horses is a herd, but a group of ponies is sometimes called a string, and a group of colts is basically called a rag. That must be an English term. Nobody uses rag, but it's a real name, and I guess some people still think it's spectacular. Horses use facial expressions like we do. Researchers catalog 17 distinct ones. Dogs have about 16. So your horse is out emoting the barn dog by a single eye. The fastest record horse sprint clocked around 55 miles an hour, but that's a quarter horse over a short distance. Chestnut and ergots, those little light growths, right on the outside of the pastern, are thought to be remnants of toes. They have multiple toes millions of years ago before evolution said just one toe and make it fancy. A horse's hoof is made of the same protein as your fingernails, keratin, so every farrier visit is especially, think about it, a very high stakes manicure, almost like buying. I think sometimes horses' shoes are more expensive than ours. Horses can sleep standing up thanks to a stay apparatus that locks their legs, but they have to lie down to reach REM sleep. A horse that never lies down eventually becomes sleep deprived and cranky, just as we do.
I,
Horses can recognize human faces in photographs and remember whether that person was nice to them. So they're keeping score quietly and forever.
I
The
believe that.
Budweiser Yep. The Budweiser Clydesdale have strict height requirements, and their hooves are roughly the size of dinner plates. A single shoe can weigh about 5 pounds more than horseshoes by a wide margin. And of course, Clydesdales, they accept them at 18 hands tall. Horses' ears have about 10 muscles each. Humans have 3. I don't think I have any muscles in my ear, and most of us can't even use those. See, there you go. They swivel 180 degrees independently, which is how a horse can listen to you and completely ignore you at the same time. That is my useless horseless
Those
facts for the day. There you go. Quite a
quite a
list. You bet.
list.
We
I
covered it
do
all.
want to let our audience know that I am not drinking beer. I am drinking non-alcoholic beer.
Hey, ask you, I saw that, Bella. I
Because
thought, wow, you must have had a tough day.
it's actually very refreshing
Okay.
after being hot.
Yes.
It is not regular beer.
I'm going to just duck down here. I'm going to show everybody my bucket again.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to ask our friends if we were to bring on a guest or two, who might they enjoy visiting? Because they have to be able to talk to a tree like we can.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. If anybody had anybody that we would like to go and invite, that would be great. All right. So this question came from Janet DeVicchio. And her question was, can you speak to the changes you have observed over the years and how have horses, riders, and drivers and spectators changed and are better?
I consider that question quite a bit in my own terms. Here is my current set of thoughts. Okay. And mind you, every decade, as you review what you've done and how you've done it and what have you, I try to embrace change and look at what's current, what's trending, what I would change, what I wouldn't change, what the foundations are, all of the above. So basically, I think across the board, our horses are more athletic and easier to train from developing the athleticism. I think those pieces have improved greatly. I question whether some of the art of making a horse and training a horse through a cross training and different techniques is not passed down as much, where we had to really create horses and teach them to be athletes versus coming in more athletic. I think that's the evolution of breeding. I question the longevity of our animals now with the higher athleticism, springier gaits, that kind of thing. If they I'm not talking about the one off, consistently hold their athleticism into their teens, late teens, etc. I think the jury's out on that. Also, with that, because they're a little finer bone on the most part. Again, not the one-offs. I'm not talking about the one-offs. I think our professionals, skill-wise, are very talented. They are this generation coming up, they're smart. They have some techniques that are good. They're very talented. I hope they don't take shortcuts with many of the training tools that are out there, because at the end later in life, these young horses that are being prepared quickly, and with our supply and demand, we're going to need these horses to last.
Mhm,
And I do have concerns whether some of the training techniques are going to allow that to happen. So
mhm,
these horses can be recycled through the different communities that we have within our industry. And again, I think the jury's out on that. I don't have a firm stance one way or the other. I have hypotheses and questions about that. And I think time will tell. Our young trainers are creative. They are trying very hard to do everything, I think, the way that they perceive to be in excellence. Again, you might have that one-off person that isn't, but I think the majority are. They're very conscientious. They know in my time growing up, we were pretty wild and
mhm,
free. And the responsibilities that our younger people have financially now are greater. So I see a little more decorum in that in terms
mhm,
of maybe not being as wild and free
mhm,
out in public like we might have been. So I think that's good. I love the fact that the young professional leadership is forward thinking in areas that are challenging some of the norms that needed to be challenged. It is, through their educational plans and their programming and their fundraising, what have you. I'm really happy to see that. When I watch the horse shows and I think that we have a lot of excellence in the instruction
mhm,
and the programs that allow that our students to go through the funnel overall are very good. Sometimes they're a little fractured in the regional areas. They could be a little tighter. Those areas that are privy to having a community where they cross the street, can put a tournament on, they have a little bit better pipeline than, say, somebody that's in upstate New York.
mhm,
You don't have the plethora of barns around there. So in my work with Success in Saddles, I spend a lot of time in the fringes working with people to help them understand how they can work themselves up the ladder when they don't have that direct pipeline.
mhm,
And some of the smartest business people I've met are the ones on the fringes because they do not have that pipeline. And they do have to continually recycle their animals, their riders, moving them forward. Their logistics to go to some of the mainstream shows are much greater. They have to develop that desire in their clients to be able to carry the bill to do that
mhm,
versus just jumping across the street or the
right,
next county over. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for the professionals that are doing that.
mhm. I think that was a very
So
good
I
answer.
think the jury's out on longevity. I think the quality it has across the board improved.
Yeah. To agree with you too. I think the quality of horses is just phenomenal. And I think that's also come through like with breeding practices and stuff too. Some of the horses out there are super phenomenal. I mean, there are some horses that, I think through breeding, they're very athletic. They have tons of motion and the conformation and just the length of their necks and, everything and how they're up on the bridle. Years ago, when you look back like in the 60s and 70s, you didn't really, have a lot of that. I think the Hackneys and the Saddlebreds and the Morgans too. To me, they're just all beautiful horses. So I think I have to go and agree with you. And as for the riders, the people that I think that really want to go and be in the business, I think are really phenomenal riders. I have noticed though that the kids coming up through the riding school aren't the same kids that we used to have growing up. Of course, we used to get horses from horse sales, and when you would get a horse from a horse sale, everybody couldn't wait to go and ride them. The lesson horses that we have now, people pretty much want them cookie cutter. They don't like horses that are too wild. They kind of want horses that are a little bit more, by the books. So I probably have to say your everyday rider. The level of the everyday rider is probably not as strong as what it used to be, but the people that do really like to ride that, we still have those killer riders, like those kids that love to ride everything. They're definitely still out there, but the entire group as a norm, that I feel that's definitely different.
I think it's shifted too. And a lot of people ask me that question when I'm out and about. And I think our pool of opportunity is much smaller
Yes.
because there's so many opportunities for the entertainment dollar.
Mhm.
And the agrarian society has shrunk tremendously. So
Right.
the programs that were based, your FFA, your 4-H, all that, while they're amazing and they're probably quality-wise better than they've ever been,
Yes.
numerically,
The numbers aren't what they
you
used
don't
to
see
be.
the
Mm-mm.
numbers
No.
there. So with that said, I think if somebody finds their way to us, we have a very good shot at creating some kind of a relationship if they want to do it.
Mhm.
I also think that our students are very intelligent
Mhm.
and they will not just take our word for it. I have found that I have to, through my actions, through my dedication, prove that I am as much of a student of what I'm teaching them as a teacher of what I'm teaching them.
For
And
sure.
that process, they may be slow on the uptake to want to embrace the journey. And if you could wait that out once they make their decision that this is what they really want to do, I find them to be very committed.
And then they
And
just take off for sure. That's why I meant
then
that
they
that
take off.
echelon, then they take off. And we can probably
Yeah.
go and thank social media for that too, because there's so many things like now, like when you go to horse shows, the fact that, you have like, Richfield Video and all the, different videoing companies, you can see everybody like riding it. Even if you're not at that horse show, you can actually watch the horse show. You can pull up these videos. You can revisit them. If you want to sit there and look at top equitation riders, you can watch that equitation rider ride, do that same pattern now 50 times. Where when we were growing up, we only had the ability to just see that rider at a horse show, and that was it. Where now, thank you to, social media, there's, the learning aspect of it, I think is definitely right off the chart. So no, I have to agree
We
with you on that.
dedicate one of our episodes to the way that we grew up marketing these horses and maybe see if those are applicable avenues to talk about now.
Mhm.
Because I know our time is about done, but that would be an interesting conversation to
For
hold.
sure. For sure.
And I would love for our audience to share with us different ways that they've marketed their businesses and their lessons and because once we connect an owner or a human to a horse and they have that magical moment,
Mhm.
we have somebody that can be in our community.
Yep. For sure. For sure.
And so in it when I'm training young people to teach, I'll simply say, "You're the front of the house.
Mhm.
I can teach you whatever you need to learn to be able to teach someone to ride. Your primary job is to show these students the love of the horse and to create that passion in them.
Right.
The rest of it, I can help you do it. But
Right.
have these people fall in love with the animal and the rest will follow."
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And I think in one of our podcasts too, we're going to talk about too, like marketing to the older rider, which I think is a huge group right now. And look, our time is up. We chatted again for another hour.
It goes quickly.
It does. It goes very quickly. And I hope everybody enjoyed our third podcast. And we have so much to talk about. Next week, Ellen can wear another hat.
Yes, this one's a little hot for today because it is out here. It's like 94 where I'm sitting.
That's hot. Yeah,
It's hot. It's
that's
hot,
hot.
but
That's
it's
okay. Yep.
I
And
want
you
to
could
thank everybody for tuning in. We couldn't have our podcast if you didn't take the moment to listen to us share our stories. We hope that you find something, a little tidbit of joy might be meaningful to you. And Martha, till next week,
let's
we're going
stir up.
to
Yeah, we're gonna
stir up
stir
some
up some
trouble.
trouble.